7 years at the helm, the CEO of Ontario's embattled transit agency has resigned. The province says Phil Verster will leave Metrolinx as soon as December 16th. Now, his exit comes amid delays on transportation projects across the GTA, notably the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. Sean Jeffords joins us from Queen's Park with the details. And Sean, what do we know about Verster's departure?
Well, Kelda, right now we don't know a lot. We do know that, as you said, Phil Verster will be leaving his role as CEO of Metrolinx within the next couple of weeks. We know that he's leaving for a job in the rail sector. We don't know what that job is or where it is, but we do know that the province has begun to do the initial groundwork here to replace him. Now, Premier Doug Ford earlier today was asked about Verster's departure. He took this job, as you said, 7 years ago, 2017, and he has been a lightning rod for criticism, specifically when it came to the Eglinton Crosstown. Here's Premier Ford talking today, earlier in the day, to reporters about Verster, his departure, and about the problems on the Eglinton Crosstown.
What he has done in the last 5.5 years is nothing less than a miracle, building 4 lines, $70 billion in transit. We're going to miss him. But we'll have a steady hand there. I was the first, I come out all the time, I agree. It was terrible. It's done now. We're going through training on the line.
So the Premier also defended Verster's salary, Kelda. That was another lightning rod for criticism for Verster. He made $830,000 in 2023, and the opposition have said that, that wasn't really justified. They were criticizing him for that. Ford said, hey, if you look at the private sector, rail sector companies, that salary makes Verster underpaid, in his opinion.
And Sean, what is the official opposition saying about Verster's exit today?
So we spoke with NDP opposition leader Merritt Stiles, who said that this departure has been a long time coming. She said that the government really needs to dig in and ensure there's accountability for the overruns on costs and the delays in the Eglinton Crosstown. Here's NDP leader Merritt Stiles.
It's been a long time coming, but look, it doesn't end our concerns because the Eglinton LRT still not delivered, years and years behind schedule. Your Ontario derailed, and so the buck doesn't just stop with one person. This is on Doug Ford and his Conservative government.
So, Kelda, on that point right there, Merritt Stiles is saying that she hopes the government takes this opportunity while the leadership is changing to really review Metrolinx's mandate when it comes to its transit projects and the delivery to make sure that they are delivering on their mandate.
Yeah, and Sean, Eglinton Crosstown, as we know, a lot of delays. It's been under construction for 14 years. What is next for Metrolinx and specifically the Eglinton Crosstown?
Well, that's exactly where the story picks up. Really, Premier Doug Ford is saying he is appointing Michael Lindsay, who is the head of Infrastructure Ontario, to take carriage of this project and to ensure that the Eglinton Crosstown is opened. We still don't know, frankly, when that opening date will occur, when they'll open the doors and let people use that transit line. But that apparently now is Michael Lindsay's top priority as the interim CEO of Metrolinx.
Thanks so much, Sean. Our Sean Jeffords reporting for us tonight at Queen's Park. As speculation of an early election swirls around Queen's Park, the Ontario Liberals made a major healthcare promise today, pledging to recruit more than 3,000 family doctors by 2029. Lane Harrison explains how.
Our number one priority and central commitment will be this: to ensure that every single Ontarian has a family doctor within 4 years.
The provincial Liberals have spent much of the fall criticizing the Ford government's record on health care, making it their ballot box issue for a yet-to-be-called election. Now, Bonnie Crombie and her team are making their first major announcement about how they'll improve the system.
We're going to bring a wartime effort to fixing this crisis, and we're going to pull every lever possible to track our progress each and every single day. And if I fail, don't re-elect me.
To help the 2.5 million people in need of a family doctor, the Liberals say they would open 2 new medical schools and expand the existing ones. They will recruit hundreds of qualified family doctors working in other fields to return to family medicine and structure new clinics under a team-based model that will give people access to care on evenings and weekends. The plan, which includes other initiatives, will cost $3.1 billion. But the Conservatives contend they're already working hard on the issue.
We are training more doctors in the province of Ontario. We are actually opening up 2 new medical schools.
In direct response to the Liberals' plans, a spokesperson for the Minister of Health says the Liberals cut medical seats when they were last in power. They also say the Conservative expansion of medical schools is the largest in Ontario in 15 years. The official opposition is also wary of the Liberals' ability to achieve its promise.
Ontarians won't forget the difficulties that we experienced in our healthcare system under the previous Liberal government. Doug Ford is just pouring gasoline on a fire that the Ontario Liberal government built.
The Liberals also plan to recruit more doctors to rural areas where they're badly needed and to incentivize the more than 2,000 family doctors nearing retirement to extend their careers, something one industry advocate thinks could be a positive.
One of the reasons why people are retiring or scaling back is that we're asking so much of family doctors right now. We're saying, sign up, have a practice of a few thousand people, and by the way, people are going to ask you if you could do some more every single day.
He says relieving doctors of administrative duties is something physicians want now. He says it could save them nearly 20 hours a week, leaving them more time to spend caring for patients. The Liberals do plan to streamline and digitize several administrative tasks, but much of what they're proposing are things the Conservatives are already working on. Lane Harrison, CBC News, Toronto.
The Ontario government launched a multi-million-dollar ad campaign south of the border today, touting the province as a long-standing friend and ally to the U.S. It comes as U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is threatening 25% tariffs on all Canadian products when he comes into office. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redicott has more.
Stable and secure when the world around us isn't.
A soothing voice and stunning scenery here and in the U.S. Some old-timey shots, and a stat the Ford government likes to repeat, that Ontario is the top trading partner for 17 U.S. states.
Our long-standing economic partnership keeps millions of Americans working. In a changing world, it's time to bring jobs back home and build together.
The Premier's office says the ads will run where, as it says, we know our audience is. Fox News prime time, NFL football games, and at Washington airports over the holidays. One marketing expert noticed one word that's not there.
Tariff. So we're dancing around the issue in a way. It feels like some kind of economic development ad that would run in normal times.
He also wonders what happened to the idea of Team Canada, saying many Americans know Canada, but not individual provinces.
It's not aggressive. It's a classic advocacy, almost hopey-dopey, speak to Americans and their wallets, which is that tariffs will hurt them, probably more than they will hurt us.
The ad will also air during the Super Bowl, though not one of those coveted TV spots. It'll just be for those streaming the big game on the Fox Sports app. And they'll expand the ad campaign in January to include Washington billboards and transit shelters. The government hasn't specified the cost other than tens of millions of dollars.
It's expensive, right? Like, I would question, if there aren't more economical ways to address this. As I've said before, I think the Premier should be on the phone with every single governor and talking about our mutual reliance on each other. Things like that, actions like that are just as important, if not more.
The Premier has previously met with governors. The Economic Development Minister is headed to Washington next week to impress on politicians the long-term relationship and importance of this province to their country.
And for generations more, we'll still be here, right by your side.
Lorenda Redicott, CBC News, Toronto.
A new report by Feed Ontario reveals that 40% of food banks are now reducing the amount of food they provide to clients. A half have been forced to cut wraparound services amid record high demand and resource shortages. The report points to the affordability crisis and inadequate government support programs as the reasons. The number of people who access a food bank in Ontario surpassed 1 million from 2023 to 2024, a 25% increase from the year prior. The Canada Post strike is now in its third week, with the holidays fast approaching. After a breakdown in negotiations last week between the Crown Corporation and its workers, both sides are hoping to get things back on track this week. Greg Ross brings us up to speed.
Canada Post workers used fire pits to stay warm on one of the coldest days they've seen on the picket lines since going on strike more than 2 weeks ago.
My feet are a little cold, my hands are cold.
But they say despite the cold, the more than 55,000 Canada Post workers on strike remain united in their fight.
We're fighting for fair wages, we're fighting for safe working conditions, and we're fighting also for up to retire with dignity.
Yesterday, Canada Post brought a new proposal forward in hopes of reigniting discussions between the two sides.
There's been a big gap at the table that needs to close. We've put forward proposals that bring us part of the way there, and now we're waiting to see from CUPW what they're prepared to bring forward to help close that gap between the two of us.
Canada Post says the new proposal addresses many of the workers' concerns, but one sticking point is how to handle weekend parcel delivery.
We need to change the delivery model because the world has changed.
Canada Post would like to make weekend parcel delivery a year-round service rather than seasonal. They have also proposed hiring new part-time employees specifically for this service instead of paying full-time employees overtime to cover the shifts.
These would be new positions that we'd hire in the future, or some of our temp employees would be able to get into a position where there'd be benefits, some guaranteed hours, the ability to work more hours.
But the union says the company is not offering the same security for these new positions, and they have concerns about the impact the new jobs may have on full-time employees in the future.
They want to create new jobs that are part-time with less benefits, with a different pension plan, and with flexibility.
If the two sides can't come to an agreement on this issue and others, many workers fear the strike will drag on through the holidays.
I have 4 children, and Christmas is going to be for sure not what it was last year. We already told them it's going to be just about games at home. We now don't expect any presents.
Representatives from the union say they are in the process of reviewing the new proposal from Canada Post. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
A massive cleanup is underway in cottage country tonight. In the town of Gravenhurst, nearly 1.5 meters of snow fell over the weekend, resulting in downed hydro lines and trees and abandoned vehicles. The town declaring a state of emergency as it tries to dig itself out. Ali Chiasson was there today and has more on the ongoing recovery efforts.
We get through this, don't worry. I'm optimistic.
When the snow slammed Ontario's Muskoka region, these trucks followed their GPS off the main highway, number 11, and onto side roads like this one.
Just around this corner, it's literally a really hard left and then followed by a really hard right, and it drops down a hill. This road is not designed for these guys. There's too many corners that are way too tight and skinny bridges that are barely capable of holding 2 cars at once, never mind a transport truck.
There are a dozen trucks here. The meter of snow they were under has melted away, and the heavy tows have been running day and night to get them out.
I'm running out of fuel now. I'm 3 days here, right? Pulling out people to get back to Toronto.
The snow came so fast on Saturday that it trapped hundreds of drivers. A 100-kilometer stretch of Highway 11 was shut down, so some tried to find another way through.
Cars were going by fine. It was when the transport trucks started to come through, because I think the highway was closed. They want to get their load to where it's going, so they took the back way, and it wasn't a good idea.
Monday, that highway began to reopen, a key artery restored.
I can't remember, in my time here, I can't remember ever in my life ever experiencing a highway closure of this magnitude.
In the town of Gravenhurst, a state of emergency was in effect for a second day. As crews worked to restore power and the shoveling and plowing continued, this mom was still trying to get home after spending the night with her kids in her car.
Well, it was warm because I got gas, but we stayed in the car and slept in the car and made what we could of it.
Back on the side road, the Ontario trucks didn't have any tire chains on them, but a little traction and trucker teamwork. And these guys are back on the road. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Gravenhurst.
Welcome back. An update now on a story we brought you recently about Ontario's justice system. Now, last month, we revealed that the majority of criminal charges laid by police are not making it through the system, and that the province won't track the reasons why charges are stayed and withdrawn. As some experts say, changing how charges are laid would make a big difference. As Sarah McMillan explains, it's a system that's already been successfully implemented in other provinces.
The way criminal investigations work right now in Ontario is that police arrest suspects and lay charges. The Crown will later review the case and decide whether to continue and prosecute. But as we recently reported, more than half of the charges are being withdrawn, stayed, dismissed, or discharged without ever going to trial. But in some provinces, it's the Crown that decides if charges should be laid in the first place. In BC, this pre-charge screening system has been in place for decades. I spoke with Jennifer Johnston, Vice President of the BC Crown Counsel Association.
Yes, it is a successful system, and it is something which I think at the end of the day does lead to greater court efficiency.
In her province, far fewer charges are ultimately dropped compared with Ontario. Last year, a report prepared for a federal committee looked at justice systems across the country. Groups like Legal Aid Ontario, the Ontario Human Rights Commission, and the John Howard Society all voiced support for moving to pre-charge screening. And the Crown representatives in Ontario that were consulted were also unanimous that Ontario should consider changing its system. But the current president of the Ontario Crown Attorneys Association doesn't share the same view.
It's very labor intensive, and things have to happen in a timely manner too. I worry about public safety when arrests have to be made, or an arrest has been made, and now a Crown has to be involved. My Crowns are already working around the clock.
Donna Kelway says she's also concerned about blurring the line between the Crown and cops. That's also a key concern from police. The Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police has been the notable opposition to changing the status quo.
We certainly do welcome that feedback. We certainly are open to consultation. But ultimately, when it comes to the decision, we need to lay this charge for these reasons. That decision in this province rests with the police. And that's something that we feel strongly should still remain with us.
Jennifer Johnston in BC says the Crown and police do remain separate and independent, even though in her province, the Crown approves charges.
So I'm a trial lawyer. That's what I do, day in, day out. Now, the best of the RCMP obviously have great legal acumen, but it is not exactly the same. And even if it is, isn't it great to have some other person look at your work and decide whether or not charges should be proceeding to court?
Johnston believes a pre-charge screening system ultimately improves efficiency and caseload throughout the justice system. That conclusion echoed by criminologist Christopher Williams, who wrote a report 7 years ago which concluded that screening charges would help clear crowded courts by eliminating charges that have no chance of conviction.
If you discover when you go home that your bathtub is overflowing, do you say to yourself, okay, reduce the flow of the water? Or do you say to yourself, no, it's a capacity issue, and then you go out and get a bigger bathtub? And I'm saying the bigger bathtub position is absolutely not viable.
Last year, the Ministry of the Attorney General told the Provincial Standing Committee that there were potential benefits to moving to a pre-charge screening model, and said it was consulting on the merits of changing the system, but that agreement from police would be critical. We asked the ministry if opposition from police is impeding change. The ministry did not answer our question, but said it continues to listen to voices across the justice system. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Toronto.
We have Chris Potter joining us now with the look at the forecast, and we were pretty unscathed here in the city, but man, some parts of Muskoka, wow, the amount of snow that they got, it'll take a while to get themselves out of that.
And there's more on the way.
is the biggest issue. Nothing like they saw. I mean, we're talking about like 1.5 meters of snow. That's ridiculous. But it just proves how Mother Nature, along with the lake effect machine, that's what us meteorologists in the biz call it, it is a machine. It's very efficient at creating snowfall under the right conditions. And it was just unfortunate that the lines of snow or the bands of snow were pretty much stationary. So we'll talk about the temperatures first. Not a bad day if you're out and about. We are seasonable. Temperatures peaked at 3 in Toronto, 2 in Windsor, -2 in Ottawa. We still have snow squall warnings out for the southeastern shoreline of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. Those are illustrated in red. Yellow, that's a snow squall watch, which means conditions will become favorable for the development. That's not going to happen tonight. It's going to happen tomorrow evening, overnight, and into Wednesday morning. In terms of snowfall accumulations, we'll start there. Once again, it's confined to the Lake Huron, Georgian Bay shoreline at first, and then as the winds start to shift to the southwest tomorrow and a system moves in, that's going to utilize the extra moisture from Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. It enhances the snowfall in those two areas. So once again, it looks like 10, 15, 20 centimeters of additional snowfall from our system enhanced. In the GTA, it looks like we'll escape with maybe a few centimeters locally, and it might actually change over, mix with a little bit of rain in the downtown core as we get into the evening. We'll put it in motion for you. So for this evening and tonight, we get into, yes, the lake effect snow. That continues. Once we get into the afternoon, upper winds begin to shift. We'll get a little band of cloud moving across the GTA with maybe a few flurries. Then the lake effect snow starts to take over eastern Georgian Bay, and then the system itself starts to wander in. And this is going to be tracking well to the north, which holds the southwesterly winds, which is important because once again it will enhance that snowfall across the northeastern shoreline of the Great Lakes, including Georgian Bay. Once we get through Wednesday night and into Thursday, that system clears. What we're going to be left with is more lake effect snow off the southeastern shoreline of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. So it's kind of an active weather pattern, obviously. Temperatures tonight around -3 in the city, -5 through Windsor. As we get into the day tomorrow, it looks like daytime highs will be at or a touch above the 0-degree mark. As we get into the day on your Wednesday, once again, periods of light snowfall, highs around 1, maybe 2, so it would be a wet snowfall here in the city. I would say 1 to 3 centimeters, not a big snowmaker. Lake effect snow in the snow belts for Thursday and possibly Friday. Saturday, another system moves in. Cloud cover with flurries, maybe a little bit of light snow. So, yeah, the winter pattern, it's back.
All to say, winter is here. It's only just beginning.
Someone sang the song, Let It Snow, Let It Snow, and it snowed.
It's definitely snowing. All right, thanks so much, Chris, and that's all the time we have today. Have a great night, everyone.